I'm excited for. I mean, there's a lot of people that think crypto is going to enslave us, and it's possible.
How?
What?
Tell me how.
Well, the technology is certainly dangerous.
Well,
it's a double-edged sword. It's either
Right.
something that's going to free you. It's like a weapon. It's like having a gun. You can either hurt people with it or you can protect people with it. It's the technology in and of itself is neutral. It's what hands it's in and what we allow people to do. You talk about lizards. I mean, go back to the Federal Reserve, the central banksters, and the central bank digital currency. That's what we have to push back against. And by the way, they're building it. I mean, the World Economic Forum was crowing, 3 months ago about, I think 97% of countries have a white paper drawn up. They're ready to implement it. Some of that stuff's on hold here in this country, but still, not on say on hold, it's slowed down a little bit. But the central bank digital currencies are still coming. The question is, can those of us who are promoting free markets and human liberty and the free exchange of ideas, can we get out ahead of the ball and create a system where if they deliver it, it's inert? Which has been my goal, like just to speak out. I've been talking about central bank digital currency for years, and long before it even hit the popular vernacular. So I think we are on a good track right now. There's lots of danger. It's perilous. What's the Chinese symbol for crisis and opportunity is just inverted. That's where I believe we are now, and I think the dollar. I'm going to talk about this in my next show, but I'll drop it here. I wanted to respond to Trump's tweet on the 100% tariffs for countries that don't use the dollar. I mean, that's weaponization of the dollar by other means. By the way, the dollar is on its way out. It doesn't. It's sticking around, but you got to understand. After Basel III, the Bank of International Settlements in 2021, they took gold from a tier 3 asset to a tier 1 asset, so put it right up there with currency, and then it bypassed the euro. So it's the dollar and then gold. Ladies and gentlemen, gold has already supplanted the dollar as the world's reserve currency again. It's the end of Gresham's law. That's where we are. Now, you can still use dollars, and there's still going to be a lot of things are going to be denominated in dollars. But you see, that's why these central banks are buying massive amounts, breaking the records, buying gold. That's why I just keep
buying gold, bro.
Gold is money. And again, that's something that the bankster J.P. Morgan said, is that gold is money, everything else is credit, except he's incorrect. Everything else is debt. So there's 52 times more currency on Earth than I was born in the end of 79. And that's only going to increase. So again, gold and what the BRICS countries, by the way, what Trump was saying is that if you create your own currency to compete with the dollar, then we'll put 100% tariff. You won't be able to sell in the country. I don't think they're not doing that. I don't think what the BRICS nations are doing, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, they got like 40% of the world's population and more of the GDP. They're creating cross-border payment system utilizing commodities. Okay, so that's why they want to reevaluate everything. That's what's going on in this century. That's what's going on in this decade. That's the Great Reset. The Great Reset is a financial reset outside of the 1971 experiment of Richard Nixon taking us off the gold standard, and the rest of the world followed, which is a fiat currency system. So they're going to reset everything, and and that's.
What are your thoughts on that? Good or bad for humanity? Obviously, for the dollar, that hurts the dollar.
Well, the dollar, we'll have to go through some sort of. My opinion is it's more nefarious in the sense they'll use that opportunity to usher in the central bank digital currency problem, reaction, solutions. Like, well, look at what these other countries did to our beloved dollar, and then just give us your biometrics. Here's your wallet, and gets put into the system. That's the central bank digital currency. We're all in this together with the same kind of language they rolled under COVID-19 before. But I think what is happening is that, again, these countries are moving away from the dollar. De-dollarization is happening. You say it every week in the ad, that we read for Wisewolf. It's real. De-dollarization is happening rapidly. The percentages of uses of dollars is collapsing. And again, it's not an alarm bell going off in the night, but you can see it a long ways off. These countries are going to stop using it, and they're going to create cross-border payment systems using gold, because the dollar, again, loses purchasing power every single month, every single year. And they have one weapon, which is like, we're going to print our way out of it, where it's the welfare of the warfare state. That's the modern central bank economy, which is going to be replaced.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin has a role in that. Gold and silver have a role in that. But if you don't want to be, I think, in a sense of normalcy bias where the dollar's not going to hold its value. Yeah, you can trade in and out of the dollar. That's fine. But at the end of the day, gold and silver are the new cash. Bitcoin is savings. These are things that's the future. The 1971 experiment. Have you ever seen the website WTF happened in 1971? Have you ever seen that website?
No.
It just, I mean, talk about socially.
WTF, what happened in 71?
Yeah, WTF happened in 1971 website.
Let's go, bro.
It is, it really breaks down all the socioeconomic impacts of fiat currency. And we said this last time we were on the show, fiat currency is evil.
Yeah.
The fiat currency, fake currency system it creates things that should not be.
It funds everything you can't stand.
Yes.
Everything that you think is wrong in the world, this fiat currency is funding it. They've turned our Federal Reserve, which is actually their Federal Reserve, into funding all the wars, into funding all the social programs that brought great chaos to the world. And,
classic.
You know, as a guy who fought for the country, like, when you hear we're moving off the dollar, are you happy? Are you sad about that? Because it's like a double-edged sword, right? Like, in one hand, it like hurts the country because that's our monetary system, but on the other hand, it's like we gotta stop funding all these wars. We gotta stop bringing pain and suffering to everybody else. I'm anti-war across the board, and not just Gaza. What's happening in Yemen? What's happening in all these other places? Like, I'm anti all that. I hate war. There's too many people who are way too comfortable with war. And I've never been to war. You've been to war. I don't need to go to war to know the war is bad. And that's why I've been anti-war since the moment I realized there was war. Yes. So what is your whole thoughts on that?
Well, fiat currency and the dollar itself right now is the lifeblood of the military-industrial complex. It promotes the evil that underlies the warfare state. That's what we are under right now. And this is, again, they build things that shouldn't be built. They promote companies that should have failed. They promote people that shouldn't be in our reality as far as leadership and all the rest. And it's fake. It's a fake, we said this last, fake news, fake wars, fake politicians with real consequences. And that's what fiat currency does. You don't need the dollar. I'm sorry, you don't. We have a gold standard. We have a silver standard. It's known worldwide, whether you're in Boston or Bangladesh. It doesn't matter. That's what gold's worth. Bitcoin's the same thing. Silver's the same thing. There are better ways. We didn't have a central bank from 1836 to 1913. Andrew Jackson wanted that on his tombstone. He hated the Rothschild banking system. He killed the second bank of the United States. He wanted that on his tombstone. I killed the bank. He said they were a den of vipers and thieves. And he said, I'm going to rout you out. And that was one of his greatest achievements. So we were fine. We had private institutions that would issue currency or notes and so on. And the government, of course, constitutionally, the United States Constitution says that only Congress can coin money, and it has to be gold and silver. It's not that I necessarily am just in love with gold and silver, but and you can have corrupt government with a gold standard. It's just a lot harder for them to get away with the massive amount of fraud and criminality that they have right now.
You just are playing monopoly money. You're just printing money, bribing everybody everywhere to do unholy acts against humanity. Through this fake money, you're bribing everybody. You're bribing everybody with fake money, and you're taking back real assets.
Yeah, and you're robbing people who think, well, they're working twice as hard to make half as much. Again, and every time you increase the money supply, those on fixed income lose. Is it meals or is it medicine? They have to decide. This is immoral. And so if you have, the 19th century, we didn't have inflation. If I use this all the time. People who hear me are probably sick of it. But, if you went to see George Washington, his inaugural, you bought a suit, it would cost the same in 1902. We literally had no inflation. It wasn't part of our lineage. That's a bankster scheme. That's a magic trick. Babylonian money magic. 100%. That's what it's alchemy. It's modern alchemy, economic alchemy.
Dark arts.
That's why I promote sound money, because I think sound money promotes freedom, promotes peace. You can't get away with the things they get away with now. Like I was reading on the plane yesterday, just some ancient history, and of course the first gold coins came out of Lydia. I don't know if you knew this. And the king of Lydia, his name was Croesus. And so, we always have that, anybody that talks about gold coins and where, the Lydian coins, they had a certain alloy that's called electra. They were mixed with silver and gold, but that was the first coinage. And of course, the king, he wanted to know he called all the the soothsayers and the psychics and the oracles. He sent out an edict, and he said, if you can tell me what I'm doing tonight, I'll shower you with gold because I want to know the future. And only one of them got it right. It was the Oracle of Delphi. And the Oracle of Delphi said, well, I see what you're doing. Then they wrote back and said you were having a turtle and a rabbit for dinner or something like that. It's some random thing that no one would have ever gotten. And so he showers the oracle with gold. And he says, now, I want to attack the Persian Empire, which is Iran, that's why I'm bringing it up, because this is where we're headed in 2025. That's what I see. So he's going to attack Iran, which is the first modern gold economy. And the oracle says, he says, what will happen if I attack Iran? And the oracle says, if you attack Iran, a great empire will fall. And so the king increases, he gets all his army together, and he goes and attacks Persia. And he attacks Persia, and a great empire falls, his.
Yeah.
The oracle never said which one.
Yeah.
So it's something that where we're careening into this moment in history. I'm seeing 2 or 3 steps ahead. With the Trump's picks in his cabinet, where we're leaning. We might, hopefully, we get away from the Ukraine conflict or put something on that to de-escalate. But I think that's where we have to have wisdom going into the rest of this decade and the rest of this century, because the powers that be, they're pushing the Great Reset. That's what we're in. We're in Agenda 21. We're in Agenda 2030. These things are aligning, and they all circle themselves. That's in the orbit that we're in right now. And, of course, the monetary system is changing. Everything's changing. That's going to be the one constant, but we got to stay out of these wars.
No, I agree, dude. I really do agree. And that's where we're heading. I think so much of what's playing into the world has to do with that dude going into the city of Tyre and just wrecking those Babylonians, and they've never forgived Russia for that ever since. And they've had they've done everything they can to cripple that country over and over and over again. I think it all comes back to that battle, like why they hate that guy, because he went into that town that was uninvadable. They made it so it was a fortress that you could not penetrate, and he penetrated it, and they hate him ever since. And it just all goes back to that. And just, whatever you want to say about what this religion, that religion, Jesus said no usury, and he's 100% right on that. Debt has caused great angst in this world. I mean, even if you study what they do with, I remember when I was young, it was I'm the oldest guy here. I was going to college. I was looking at colleges in the 90s. And one of the big sells was, hey, dude, there's 5 chicks to 1 guy. And I was like, all right. Well, you fast forward that to modern day, it's even gotten worse. It's way more women to men. And if you're a guy, you're like, oh, that's great. But if you think about it, all those women now are graduating college deep in debt. This huge debt. And you start making decisions on your life not to fulfill the thing that I think we're here to do, which is find love, get married, have kids, or some semblance of that, right? You're not thinking about that anymore. You're thinking about, how am I going to pay off this college debt? Right. Same thing with doctors. How am I going to pay off this debt? And you start making decisions to pay off the debt and not to chase your true cause, what you're here to do. And that leads into what? Depopulation. Yeah.
Debt, slavery, depopulation, loss of hope, complete loss of trajectory where you should have gone. We've created an alternate timeline with this stuff.
And it's all done on purpose. And what is the one debt you can't get out of in bankruptcy?
Student loans. You cannot get out of it.
Yeah, you can't get out of it.
Which is unconstitutional, by the way, because the Constitution gives you the right for bankruptcy. It gives you the right to get out. We don't have debt slavery in this country. We're supposed to not have, right? We can't have debt slavery. Can't be in debtor's prison. Well, technically you can. They raid people that didn't pay their student loans and put them in jail because they got liens against them. Happens all the time. That's what system they've built.
And we have some craziness because we're $1 billion trillion in debt right now. And we were talking earlier, Iceland, they just told the bankers to fuck off.
Yeah, it's not a real. It's not a real debt.
It's not a real debt.
They say we owe it to ourselves, and I raise my hand. Actually, we don't owe it to anyone.
We owe nothing.
It's an international banking consortium that's not owned by the Americans. The Creature from Jekyll Island. You could do that. Read that entire tome, and it doesn't tell you who owns it. Really, there's speculation on who owns it, but we really don't know. It's international banking cabals. So I mean, we don't owe it. We could literally free ourselves and just completely that's what we do our own reset. But that's what I think. That's what you'd have to do to reignite the republic, to have human liberty again, to put the individual back in charge, and the sovereignty of the individual. That's what you'd have to do. You have to reset the currency system. That's why I do what I do.
So do you think you could ever pay for like a Starbucks coffee with like a gold app?
Sure.
Or like I have my gold app, instead of paying for money, because the reason there's gold now, the reason dollars were invented was you couldn't carry around gold.
They have the technology right now. I mean, the private sector can do this magnificently. You could just make gold and silver legal tender, Bitcoin legal tender. I mean, we're always going to live in taxation is theft. I mean, I agree with this, but you got to have something kind of, whether it's tariffs or, consumption tax. You have to have something to run things. I don't agree with all the things they do. We'd have to have a different conversation about where the money goes. But you don't need, again, with the control the money supply, and that's something that Mayor Amschel Rothschild says, I care not who sits on the British throne. The person who controls the British Empire is the person who controls the British money supply, and I control the British money supply. It's a famous quote from the 19th century. We can do so much better in the private sector, creating, like you said, you can do fractionalized gold where it spins just like anything else, and you could put it into a currency that's acceptable or whatever, and you can do that worldwide in real time. You could deposit gold, physical gold, and spend against it. They have that technology. There's a depository. I'm going to have a guy on my show. He wrote a book called Pirate Money, and it's about the founding fathers and the lessons they took from hard money, sound money, building it into the United States Constitution, and how to defeat the Great Reset. I think that's one of the title of the book. It's a good little book. But he talks about that, and the depository they have in Texas and the fractionalized gold system. And
Texas is thinking about getting their own, Federal Reserve or their own monetary system. I forget.
Is that allowed? Is that constitutional?
Yeah, I mean they could. The state. I don't understand why the state needs to be involved. That's when people ask me, "Would you support Texas having a gold digital currency?" I'm like, "Well, I mean, we already have a gold standard. I already know what silver's worth. I don't really need you." That's what I think.
You could just barter. I mean, we bartered.
I just feel like people are
history.
They just think anything outside the system is too hard, and you're like, "No, this is actually probably easier." Hey man, you're buying this hamburger. How many gold coins do I need? Or
that at least is involves some thought and consideration of the idea. Too often now you hear people say, "That's crazy." That's you're. Oh, what is this guy? A conspiracy?
Yeah, Brian Callen was like that. That was one of our biggest fights forever. Me and Brian Callen was the Federal Reserve. He thinks it's like it helps, and I go, dude, you're just crazy. He goes, Sam, what are you gonna go? Different states are gonna have different money. I go to Canada. They have different money. There's not a giant summit on how I'm gonna pay for this latte.
That's like
right.
Totally.
I mean, like, what are you talking about, bro? What are you talking about?
We've done it before.
We've done it before. They can't come to grips with it. They just. They have this understanding. It's like these people. The problem with the average person is they project themselves onto people they don't know. So when they look at Hillary Clinton, they're like, I wouldn't slaughter the fucking president of Libya and cause open air slave trades. So why would she do that? Why would she do that? She wouldn't do. I wouldn't do that. Why would she do that? Because you're not her.
Yeah, you're not a sociopath.
Yep.
You're not there. You're not there. They know exactly who she is. And that's why she is where she is. Because they know, like, when she got kicked out of Barry Goldwater or whatever his name, kicked it out of the Nixon, Watergate. And they're like, oh, this is the chick you want. She'll slit her mother's throat to win a case, right? Like, that just promotes her. Promoting up. It's 100%. They kicked her off. Next thing you know, she's off and running. They're like, okay, she's a closet lesbian. Hook him up with this bisexual guy called Bill Clinton. Let's start a superpower.
She was a devotee to Saul Alinsky, who dedicated his book, Rules for Radicals, to Lucifer. So, I mean, that's pretty much tells you.
So, same thing with Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, bro. Unbelievable. So, Trump gets in. Billy Ray's probably like, this guy's this. Hey, dude, he was right.
Yeah, I know.